Welcome to College Smart Radio, helping you understand the true cost of college and tackle the runaway costs of financing a college education. College Smart Radio is hosted by Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz, founders of Westface College Planning. Now, your hosts for College Smart Radio, Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz.
A college that offers a full tuition scholarship may seem like a dream, but it's not a fantasy created by fiction. A pioneer of affordable college degrees, Berea College offers a full tuition scholarship for students of families in the midst of dire economic straits to gain a high-quality education. Our guest on today's College Smart Radio is the president of Berea College, Lyle Roelofs. Hi, I'm Beatrice Schultz. I'm in the studio on my own today. My co-host, Mark Guthrie, will be back next week. Welcome to our weekly show, College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of a college education. Our show is about bringing up-to-date and practical advice to parents who are dealing with the cost of a college education for their kids. With some private schools costing well over $60,000 a year, a UC costing $35,000, and a California State University running $25,000, parents need more help than ever. We bring you that help by sharing ways to pay less, tapping into financial aid, and helping you create a personal college funding plan to make sure you get through the most expensive years of your life. Based on my own education and experience, we share our insights with you week in and week out. I'm a certified financial planner, and Mark and I are the owners of the San Carlos-based college financial planning business, Westface College Planning. We're also the owners of Westface Financial Advisory, a registered investment advisory firm. We host workshops and webinars on college financial planning and consult with parents on a daily basis. In addition to our insights, we bring in experts in many areas of the college process, from counselors, financial professionals, financial aid officers, student coaches, parents, and even students. You'll learn firsthand the ins and outs of how to pay for college and survive financially. In addition to our show, you can find lots of powerful information at our website, collegesmartradio.com. We have many articles with up-to-date information on navigating the waters of paying for a runaway cost of college. We also have a monthly e-newsletter full of content about college planning, and we have a link to our free community parent workshops and webinars that we host to teach parents about how to pay for college and how the financial aid system really works. So let's get into today's show. My guest on today's show is Dr. Lyle Roelofs, who's the president of Berea College. Lyle is joining us from Kentucky, where Berea College is located. Hi, Dr. Roelofs. Welcome to College Smart Radio.
Hello, Beatrice, and thank you for having me on your show. It's a delightful opportunity for us to talk to listeners in California.
Well, thanks so much. And I thought maybe I'd start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to Berea, and then we can talk a little bit about the college.
Sure. I came to Berea College just a little bit less than 2 years ago. I'm a longtime academic. I taught for 22 years at Haverford College in the Philadelphia suburbs. Then I was the dean of the faculty and provost at Colgate University. And then in the summer of 2012, I came to Berea College and have very much enjoyed getting to know the ins and outs of the place because it has a unique mission. And I think it's one that will be of interest to your listeners.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about Berea College and what makes it a little bit special as a college.
Sure. Well, we are a small liberal arts school, and we also offer various vocational programs, including nursing, education, business, agriculture. We have a new minor coming in forestry, et cetera, but we're primarily a residential liberal arts college. And what makes Berea most interesting to many people is the fact that we don't charge tuition. We support ourselves through fundraising and because we have accumulated a significant endowment, and we use those resources to offer our education to students who otherwise couldn't afford to go to college. We think it's a great mission. And the reason we are successful in fundraising is that many other people think this is a worthwhile mission as well. We see the college degree as a necessary prerequisite to many careers. Not everyone needs a college degree, of course, but for many students, it is the prerequisite to satisfying careers and really to achieving higher quality of life overall.
So some of our listeners here in the Bay Area, some come from low-income families or may have some financial need, and the model of being able to offer full tuitions for students, I mean, Berea's been able to do that through endowments. Why isn't it happening more? Why aren't there more colleges that are able to offer this?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, every once in a while I find myself asking, why isn't there a Berea College in every state? Because even though we do our best to make this offer available broadly, there are certainly far more deserving students interested in the experience than we can accommodate. I believe the answer to why there aren't more schools like Berea are that it takes a determined effort, and it takes really an effort that extends over a number of decades before you have a situation like this that you can offer broadly. We started actually before the Civil War in about 1857, and I can talk a little bit about the early history of the college, but by the turn of the century we had decided that given where we are in the country, a place where there really are high levels of economic need, that we would have to turn to the mission of providing an education to students who otherwise couldn't afford it. And so for 115 years now, we have not been charging tuition, and we've been making this work by finding other ways of supporting our program. Part of it is, of course, that our alumni are generous and grateful for the experience, so we do get substantial support from people who graduated from the college. But for every alum who contributes to the enterprise, there are 2 non-alums who are also contributing. And I believe that formula could work in other places, but it does take a little while to get it established and to make sure people understand that that's what the mission is all about.
Well, I think the mission is very commendable, and I see many private colleges do have large endowment funds, and they're just still trying to figure out the formula to kind of have the people with the most need get the money, but depending on how the kids understand or families understand how to qualify, they're not sure, and sometimes they're surprised that they don't get. They expect that they're going to qualify for financial aid, but they don't. So at Berea, it's a pretty clean formula to qualify from a need base to go. How do you guys make sure? How do you at the college make sure that your applicants meet the standards academically we can talk about, but financial eligibility to make sure you don't have any surprises and people really do meet your need qualifications?
Right. That's a great question, because you really don't want to disappoint people who would otherwise see this as an opportunity, and so we try to provide as much information as possible. It works as follows. Many of your listeners have probably heard of the federal financial aid form called the FAFSA, which is used to determine the amount that the federal government would expect a family to pay for the education of a student. And so a family fills out this form, and at the end of the form, you get a number that says, under your circumstances, with your resources, your income, and so on, you are going to be able to contribute, say, $3,000 a year to the education of your student. Many schools use that approach and that methodology, and it's, of course, also part of determining whether a student qualifies for a Pell Grant, which can also support education. And what we do is, once we have the FAFSA filled out, if the FAFSA produces an expected family contribution that's greater than $5,000, then that student is not eligible to apply to Berea College. We offer places only in cases where the student can't contribute beyond that level, and that level is sufficient to largely cover room and board and fees and travel expenses and so on, so that in that case, if a student is contributing up to that level, then Berea College comes in and contributes a full tuition scholarship to make up the rest of the costs of attending. Now, many of our students, more than half of our students, actually have a zero expected family contribution. After the FAFSA has been filled out, it's been determined that the family is not able to contribute at all to the student's education. And in that case, our support will cover as well the costs of room and board and personal expenses and so on. In other words, we do expect the family to make the contribution that's been determined for them, and then we come in behind and cover the full tuition in any case, and in addition, costs for room and board if necessary. I should also mention a very key element in our program is that every student works for the college during his or her 4 years. We like to say that we not only admit students, but we hire them. And every student works 10 to 12 hours a week in jobs that are all throughout the institution, ranging from students who are taking care of the cleaning of the dormitories and serving of food in the dining hall, to two students who work in my office, opening the mail, taking care of filing, and helping me with routine correspondence and so on. And because students are working in that way, our overall costs of education are somewhat less. But probably more importantly, because most students wouldn't see a work experience as necessarily a plus in their college plans, the work experiences turn out to be wonderful educational experiences as well. Many employers look at a Berea College graduate and see a person who's already developed a strong work ethic, skills in working with people, working across differences, supervising, communicating with others, and even some...
Dr. Roelofs, we're going to have to take a quick break now. If you've just joined us, our guest on today's College Smart Radio program is Dr. Lyle Roelofs, the president of Berea College. We'll be right back.
College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz continues in moments on AM 1220 KDOW. For more information on today's topic, visit collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. Contact our hosts at collegesmartradio.com or call 650-587-1559. Now back to College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of college. I'm Beatrice Schultz. We all know that college is expensive and will most likely be some of the most expensive, costly years for a family. Understanding how to navigate the college cost is a smart thing to know. To help families be on this radio show, I host community workshops live and via webinar several times a month that explain the costs of various colleges, how the financial aid system works, and things to consider to prepare yourself for this tremendous expense. To learn more and reserve your seat, go to my website, collegesmartradio.com. If you've just joined us, we've been talking with our guest, Dr. Lyle Roelofs, the president of Berea College. And right before the break, we were talking about the qualification that students need to qualify having an EFC of less than 5,000, and many of your students have an EFC of 0. And I understand that, and I cut you off in a really important point, which is you were talking about the fact that you hire the students and how important that can be for the next stages in their career. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? Were you saying that the job experience that they get in the job can really help them for confidence and also job experience when they're looking for jobs?
Yes, that's a great question, Beatrice. So we've had a work program since early in the 20th century, and initially it was largely for financial reasons. That's how we generated some revenue. But over time, we realized that this was a very valuable experience for our students as well. And we now integrate the labor experience, as we call it, into the education at Berea College. Each student not only earns an academic transcript and eventually a diploma, but a student also is accumulating a labor transcript in which each supervisor that the student has had evaluates the student each year on all of the skills that are involved in being a productive and capable worker. And so you can have a wonderful academic transcript, and you can have a labor transcript that says you are accumulating those experiences as well. And I have to say that you can flunk out of Berea academically, and you can also flunk out of Berea by poor performance in the labor program. So we really mean it when we say that this is part of your education.
Well, that's very valuable, and I can imagine that you have a lot of students that are applying. So you go through the regular admission process this time of year, and you've accepted students, and you're waiting now for their acceptance in May 1st. Is that correct for the 2014 year coming forward?
That's right. We have largely completed that process for the year. Most of the students have responded, and our class is full. Please go to our website if you're interested for fall of 2015, and our cycle will, of course, repeat. I should say that just give you an idea of how we put together our student body, because when you aren't charging tuition, you get a lot of applications. And by charter and by action of our Board of Trustees, our first priority is to meet the need for education in Appalachia, the disadvantaged region, mountainous region in the middle of the country, and in Kentucky. And we typically take between 70 and 80% of our students from that part of the country. But we also are eager to have applications from students whose financial situation qualifies them for admission from around the country. And so for about 15 to 20% of our students, we are taking them from any part of the U.S., including some from California and the West, and also other areas in the country. And then finally, we take about 30 students from other countries each year. Those 30 students are selected primarily from countries where they have limited access to college educations, either because of some kind of ethnic strife that's happening or overall poverty in the country and so on. So we don't have too many first and second world students, international students, but we have good numbers of students from South America, Africa, and some parts of Asia.
What a fantastic diverse mix of students that you have at the college also, and what an opportunity for those kids to be able to be able to have the opportunity to be able to go to college. You must have quite a selection process to be able to review all those applications and make those choices. I'm sure you have a lot more students applying than you have places for.
It is difficult. We have, internationally, we have about 300 applications for every student we can accept, and domestically, we are able to accept about 1 in 7 of the applications from students who qualify financially. So it is a very difficult process. I'm just glad that we have an admissions department to do that, because every time I hear from a student, I would have a hard time saying no.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Well, and I know that you mentioned your website. A link to your website will be available on our College Smart Radio website. But one of the things the way that I found you is that I had read an article on Motley Fool, and I mentioned that to you. You said that the article was actually written by one of your students, and he's from California. So I want to share that story, or have you share that story with some of our listeners?
Yeah, that's a neat coincidence. David Kretzmann grew up in a religious community in Northern California, and it's a community that largely homeschools their young people. It's also a community that doesn't have access to large amounts of money. So David found us as a possible college option. He's a remarkable student who already, before he applied to Berea, was interested in a career in finance, possibly, and he had already been blogging and writing comments for the Motley Fool, which is a personal financial newsletter. And so after coming to Berea and becoming a successful student here, he's majoring in our program in entrepreneurship. David has pursued still the relationship with the Motley Fool and wrote the blog that you saw, Beatrice, and which introduced you to Berea College. And in this blog, David makes the point that the same kind of wise approach to investing that the Motley Fool advocates is very much the way Berea operates itself. It's very careful about investing the resources that it has, both in terms of generating income that we can use to educate students, but also investing in students themselves and making sure that we're choosing the right students to come and be part of this community. Because once we admit a student and they graduate, they really become Bereans for life.
Well, and do you find that those international students that you may be bringing from tough environments at home, do they tend to stay in the U.S. or go back? And have you ever followed some stories for some of those international students that have been part of the school?
Well, many go back. I was just in touch with the executive secretary for the president of Liberia in West Africa, and I was in touch with him because it turns out he is a Berea alum from one of the classes of the late 90s. And I was put in touch with him because there are a group of American entrepreneurs who are working to make a difference in West Africa, and this connection occurred. So many of our international students do stay and become interested in careers in the U.S., but many of them also go back to their countries of origin and become very capable and successful people there as well.
Well, I really appreciate that you've joined us on the show today, because part of what we just want to let people know what's out there and also maybe inspire some of these other colleges. It's such an expensive thing, to go to school. And I'm guessing you do keep data, or do you keep data on the sort of the advantage that some of these kids, or how many of these kids that just don't have any money aren't getting the college degree or are graduating with so much debt? I just have to imagine that the stories are that the value that you bring is just really powerful for you guys. Do you have any kind of data of, or do you do any analysis of kind of the value that you can bring, or a way that can be measured?
Well, we do pay a lot of attention to debt because our students do sometimes occasionally find themselves having to borrow, and that's typically when their families can't come up with the EFC or some other adverse circumstance intervenes. So about 2/3 of our students do borrow some money for their 4-year education here. Fortunately, they don't have to borrow very much. Our average indebtedness of our graduates over the last 3 years is only $7,000. That's the average of those who borrow anything at all, and a third don't have to borrow anything. And that can be compared to the typical national average right now, that a student who's achieved a college degree has borrowed $29,000. So
every time I hear that statistic, it gets higher and higher, too. I feel like it was 27 last year, 29. It could be 50 in 4 years. So that is $7,000. It just seems reasonable that you'll be able to pay that amount of money back. And I know there's so much more to say about Berea College, but thank you so much for joining us here on College Smart Radio.
It was very much my pleasure, Beatrice. Thank you for your interest, and my warmest greetings to all your listeners in California, where I should say I grew up myself. I grew up in Southern California.
Oh, great. Well, I'm sure my listeners really enjoyed this, and they're going to be checking out your website and just learning a little bit about the options that are available. Well, that wraps up another weekly show of College Smart Radio. We hope you picked up some new information today that helps you figure out ways to manage the runaway costs of college. You can hear us each week here on KDOW 1220 AM, Saturdays at 3 p.m. We promise to bring you up-to-date information from the front lines of helping parents deal with the most expensive years of their lives. In addition to the podcast, you'll also find a schedule of our upcoming shows at collegesmartradio.com. This is Beatrice Schultz. Thanks for tuning into College Smart Radio. We look forward to sharing more helpful information with you next week.
You've been listening to College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz. If you have questions on today's topic, log on to collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. That's 650-587-1559. And join us next week at this time for another edition of College Smart Radio on AM 1220 KDOW.
Information presented during today's show is not to be construed as advice meeting the particular needs of any investor. All mention of performance is based on historical experience. It should not be assumed that past performance is any indication of future results. Tax Center legal advice is not offered by Mark Guthrie or Beatrice Schultz. Please consult your tax professional for additional guidance regarding tax-related matters. Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz are owners and investor advisor representatives of Westface Financial Advisory. College planning services offered through Westface College Planning. Insurance services offered through Westface Financial and Insurance Services. License number OF 35251. Financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Westface Financial Advisory.